Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who's been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. La Marzocco is loved the world over because of their consistency, quality, dependability, and beauty. It truly is one of the best machines you can get for your coffee bar. One of the great examples of the kind of innovative approach they take to serving their customers is the KB90 espresso machine. They invented straight-in locking portafilters to help solve ergonomic problems. There's the scales in the drip tray for accuracy of your extractions, and then there's also the auto flush feature in the group heads, keeping things clean and the workflow going quicker. Again, all to serve you and make sure the heartbeat of your coffee shop, the espresso machine, is truly something you can depend on. La Marzocco USA is available to help you get the right machine for your cafe. Just reach out. info@lamarzoccoUSA.com. One of their salespeople will help you get the right machine for your cafe. If you want innovation, quality, beauty, and amazing service, check out lamarzoccoUSA.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espresso, who's creating custom-branded mobile apps for your coffee bar to make sure that your customers are experiencing your brand in the palm of their hand in their phone. It's not like you're just a dot on a map. The app is yours. It's your branding. It's your menu. It's your world, and that's what makes it so special. And it's a no-risk model with Espresso. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All the data is stored in the app, and it also integrates with some of the best payment processing systems, including Square. So you really do need to check out Espresso if you've been thinking about getting into mobile apps and mobile ordering for your coffee bar. Check them out and have them get started on your app today over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that I think is, I guess maybe in the background, let's say. And it's something that we all do. We all tend, no matter what you are, you could be the owner, you could be a barista. What we do is we combat our insecurities with things like enthusiasm and passion and things like that, right? So we try to overcome some of these things through So we try to compensate for the issues that we might have through means of passion or enthusiasm. And I think that this is something that commonly we have seen as being the realm of, what management and what owners do when they don't want to deal with problems in the cafe. They will, just throw a party, or they'll, create some kind of a familial language around their coffee bar that makes it harder for people to truly face the problems head on without seeming like they're unbelievers or something like that, right? There's a lot of ways that can go that have been pointed out many times, not just by myself in this show, but by plenty of professionals out there. But there's also a part of this that is just wired into our DNA to do. And baristas can do this just as much with enthusiasm and passion for community. So one of the things that we would need to talk about here is the word community. And often community is used as a way of avoiding dealing with problems head on. And we all get really happy about the fact that we're just a coffee community, we're in this together, and we kind of default back onto that word as a salve, as a way to feel good, as a way to sort of compensate for our insecurities and the nagging feeling that there's something that's not just not right, that needs to be addressed, whether that's in your specific cafe or in the industry at large, within an organization. We are constantly, I think, trying to create structures of avoidance, both personally, and then, of course, that goes out and is created corporately. Community, in a lot of cases, is a euphemism for family. And we're fine using the word family if it's coming from us. We don't like it when bosses use it again because we think that's going to be manipulative and it's going to have these side effects. And even if it's used with the best of intentions, it's problematic and all those stuff. That conversation happens a lot. But where are we talking about the fact that we need to at least regulate our use of the word community and realize that our default is avoidance? We don't want to necessarily, have that hard conversation with our coworker, with our fellow competitor, or something like that. Instead, what we do is we gloss over those things and we say, well, we're in the same community. And it's true, you're in the same community. But what makes community actually strong is not the avoidance of hard conversations and conversations in general. The answer is not, oh, well, I have a problem with this person, and so I'm just going to write them off completely and basically do what, insecure managers do, which is we manage them out. This passive-aggressive way of dealing with conflict in our lives in the corporate sense is something we hate to see when, we look at bosses doing it. They just have a problem with an employee, and rather than address it or try to create conversation or pathways to common understanding and solutions, it's just a matter of like, oh, one day you don't have as many hours. The next day you're not getting the memos. The next day you're being basically fired. That's the way we tend to deal with conflict on the level of just, baristas or people within the industry. And so when we talk about community, the reason why I feel that it's often this euphemism for family and not in the super positive sense is because you tend to see a lot more people making assumptions about each other rather than having conversations with each other because we don't like hard conversations. So in some sense, this episode is about the fact that difficult conversations and meeting these things head on is not just a practice for managers. It's also a practice for baristas within community to one another. Your community is only as strong as your ability to be all the other things that you think you are: authentic, vulnerable, all that stuff. Too often being vulnerable and being authentic equates to just oversharing all of the things that are wrong with you or the quirks that you have and saying, I have all these problems. And it's a way to share out of self-interest. It's not really out of interest for the community that you're sharing these things. A lot of vulnerability tends to be about catharsis. It's still self-serving, and what we're wanting back from it is acceptance, that people will just say like, oh, golf clap for you sharing all that and you sharing all that. But we're not really getting any further because what we're not doing is we're not trying to help each other create pathways to improvement through real conversations. It's just a lot of collection of data. We know a lot of things about each other, but are we truly walking with each other in a way that helps create progress past certain things that we do share? Will we even allow ourselves, like vulnerability to me is not just I share to you something I'm struggling with, but then if you try to speak to that, I shut you down. I'm like, whoa, sorry, I'm not taking any suggestions for this, because, this was just actually about me sharing with you, like you're some kind of unpaid psychologist, you're supposed to just accept this from me. And no vulnerability. If you're going to share, and this is part of what humility is too, if you're going to share these things, I think you should be open to having people speak into it just a little bit. Maybe they can help you. Maybe some suggestion can help make progress for you. But because it seems to be more about data transfer than anything else, our progress is limited. And that's collectively, I think, in the coffee community, we see the same thing. The progress is not really as apparent on a large scale because on a small scale, we haven't yet really figured out that community and vulnerability is not just about sharing present reality, but it's also about helping each other create future reality. Within the coffee shop, this is true. If you want to open up your coffee shop to suggestions from employees, you have to be willing to actually enact some of the things that they say. If you share with people a vulnerability, you have to be willing for them to have adjusted their view of you and maybe even be able to speak into some of those things. There is no point in opening up and being vulnerable if all you're doing is using it as a tool for your own narcissism. So the point of what I'm sharing here is that community is a good thing. We can't help but be in community. It's not like we can opt out of community. We're a part of something no matter what we do. How you're a part of it is up to you. You're either going to be the person in community who's kind of avoiding the substantial things and sort of towing the line with platitudes, and you're content to simply high five people and go to throwdowns and never really get down to the brass tacks of community. And I'd say a lot of people are there, and that's why our community in general has a hard time making substantial progress, because we as individuals don't really opt into those things much ourselves. And so naturally it follows that collectively and corporately that would reflect our individual dispositions. If we want to be others focused and we are part of a hospitality industry, then we will embrace one another and give charitable assumption to each other in the same way that we would want that to be given to us. When you have a conflict, you can either avoid it and be passive-aggressive towards it, cancel that person, write them off, whatever it is. And a lot of that is just a knee-jerk reaction to this really uncomfortable feeling. I don't know how to deal with that. That feels too real right now. I'm going to go back to this sort of image of community, this image of authenticity that's very safe. It's vulnerability in and of itself is supposed to be risky. It's funny because we have sort of taken that word and created this way of using it that divorces it from risk. But that's the whole point of it. So if we want to see progress in the industry, in our coffee bars, in the industry, even in just your life, I think we really need to address this path of least resistance that we always kind of tend towards as people. Passive-aggressive behavior and avoidance and staying at the surface of these relationships is going to keep us from a lot of progress that we could be making, both on the small scale in the cafe, in the roastery, wherever you're working, and because of that, in a large scale, we are subconsciously going to kind of self-sabotage corporate progress, because as individuals, that's what we're doing too. So I hope some of this really lands for you. These are things that, as you could probably tell, I'm actively parsing out. Not really perfect thoughts on the idea, but I definitely can see where our industry can make progress through real vulnerability, not just passionate, enthusiastic community as a defense mechanism and an escape against dealing with and embracing the messier, harder, and in the end, maybe some of the most rewarding parts of what it is to be in community. I hope that helps in some way. And I'm going to continue thinking about these things. Hopefully this has helped in some way. So I thank you very much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe to Keys to the Shop and share these episodes with your friends, and have an amazing day. And of course, I'll see you next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.